representing for the Rappers and Rabbis crew. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. We will be streaming live, but we'll also be archiving. So if you have anybody who's not tuned in tonight that would love to learn more about Rappers and Rabbis and what we are about, they can tune in later on our YouTube or our Twitch pages where we archive our live streams. It is Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King weekend, Junior weekend. And we're going to really get into it tonight. We're going to talk about social justice. We're going to talk about, base spreading peace. We always, use a big theme of our services is spreading peace, not just inner peace and peace around the world, but all sorts of peace of mind as they preach in hip hop. So we're really going to get into it tonight. We got a presentation from Matt Barr. We have a special presentation from Ali Richardson. And we do have a very special MLK dedicated spoken from our very own Mr. E. But before we get into all that, I'm going to play a quick little video about Rappers and Rabbis, a little bit more about who we are and what we do.
May Hashem gift us with the one.
Welcome my people, please sit where you want, sit where you want, sit where you want. And eye on inside and two eyes to the front, eyes to the front. Eyes to the front. Your spirit alive, the Shekhinah, she's home. Shekhinah, she's home. So feel out the vibe to feel it is flow, to feel it is flow, to feel it is flow. Hip hop on play, now get ready, let's go. The didgeridoo and the shofar will blow. The rhythm is given, just follow the flow. Community singing my toe.
That's right, classic Jewish Shabbat prayers, ancient to contemporary, remixed with hip-hop beats and bars. But that's not all. In Rappers and Rabbis Beat Knesset, we plumb the depths of hip-hop to elevate our experience, specifically with the concept of the Cypher. As hip-hop Rebbe, Purple, explains.
A hip-hop cipher is when the community gathers in a circle-like formation where everyone is participating, no one is spectating. What's happening in the cipher is individuals are demonstrating their most creative and authentic self-expression. That could be beatboxing, it could be dance moves, it could be rapping, both written or improv, which we call freestyle. The cipher is about peace, it's about love, and it's the hip-hop community way.
We offer a professional development opportunity for leaders to work with us and our little prayer book to make sure the cipher pops off at our Hip Hop Shabbat services to never be forgotten. All over your community.
Prepare for prayer. Hebra, come grab a chair. Congregation for community. Mr. Yaakov for mayor.
Shout out to Rappers and Rabbis.
Hip Hop Shabbat was awesome.
I really liked that. I think it was very catchy, especially with the Shema.
It really was honestly a magical experience because it felt like heavenly hip hop vibe.
I loved it. I love the energy. I love the message behind it.
So yeah, Heavenly Hip Hop Vibes brought to you by Rappers and Rabbis. We're going to get into some songs and some prayers tonight, but first we're going to kick off with a special dedication to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The teachings of Martin Luther King always hold a special place in my heart. In my high school is really where it started. Instead of having a day off from school, we were forced to come to school and have what they called a service day. Everybody had to participate in a community service-based project on Martin Luther King Day. It usually started off with an assembly in the morning and with a guest speaker who would kind of get into the teachings of the doctor. But then the entire school would break into groups. Some would stay on campus and do, campus-based service projects. And then some people would go to community centers, old age homes, hospitals, Habitat for Humanity locations, like you name it. There was definitely a strong fixture of having a service day. So it's something that's been instilled in me ever since I was in high school. And I always take this weekend and this day, which will be this Monday, very seriously. I really believe that as a community, And then whatever community you're in, whether it's, the Jewish community or the hip hop community, which we represent, that you give back. You give back to your community. And there's so many different ways that I think that we can like take some time to give back in the next couple days. And I hope everybody kind of takes a second. So before we really get into some of these teachings, maybe we can just like all go around and everybody can briefly introduce themselves and maybe talk about briefly what Martin Luther King Jr. weekend and what the teachings of the doctor mean to you. So maybe we can start first with Rabbi Adam, and then we'll kind of just go around the circle.
Hi everybody, Shavua Tov. Great to be here with rappers and rabbis, and say, I'm here out from Philadelphia as a teacher of Judaism, a life coach, and been working with rappers and rabbis from the beginning. And for me, I would say that I guess the word that comes to mind most strongly is hope. That I, when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's this hope kind of comes up, and it's really, for me, I guess it's a hope of that's really at the core of what it means to be human, and I see that, and that's one of the things that really guides the interactions I have with everyone, and the way I try to live my life with people is to hope for the best, to bring that out of other people. And I think when we let that hope for the best come out of us, it helps us all be better. And that it actually makes the hope makes itself come true. So that's my blessing for all of us. And let's keep swinging it around each way.
Yeah, anyone can feel free to jump in.
I'll jump in. So I appreciate just piggybacking off of what Rabbi Adam spoke on, which is the idea of hope, and bringing that together with service. I think that to hope for something good, or to hope for unity and to work for these things, it takes courage. So just even having audacity, having a spirit and a willingness to speak and come forward and call out injustice, to rally for unity, and to provide an intelligent and critical analysis of things going on, are things that you have to have hope, and you have to have courage and audacity. So for years I've been involved in different programs where there's a service aspect as well. So I appreciate Dr. King Day in those senses, and just him kind of being someone who bridges a tradition of humanity, arts and humanities, academic excellence, and intelligence at such a high level. I feel like he picked up the baton from people like W.E.B. Du Bois and other people who have brought forth a really strong vision for what America can be, and what we can be in the world. So all those traditions, and even on the hip hop side, I would say in the tradition of crucified saviors, again, people who put themselves on the line to make a difference. So even if it costs them their life. So Dr. King is definitely someone who falls, right in line with those traditions and in that way. So want to express appreciation for that.
Yeah.
Amen. I can go next. Hey everyone. My name is Internal Rhyme. I'm an MC with Rappers and Rabbis from Philadelphia, based out in LA. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is certainly special to me. I don't know if I can even top the eloquence before me, but I think the things that I really agree with that I just heard are that Dr. King's story is this beautiful mix of positive hope and negative injustice that he encountered and fought against. And I think any individual willing to literally give their life to better themselves, their community, the world around them, and the country they live in, is really a martyr in a sense. And I appreciate the opportunity to also do service on Dr. King Day and to learn, to learn, to unlearn, and to be present. So yeah, thanks for having me.
So yeah, it's a really holy holiday because it's such an anomaly in history that there's an individual who was able to make such a deep impact, was able to create such social change without lifting a fist or shooting a bullet. And that inspiration of being an individual who can make a difference and who could change the world on peaceful grounds is the most inspirational thing that has carried us into the tragedy of what happened at the beginning of the 20th century, all across the world, of the first two world wars. That hope that humanity can be found without violence, and that change can be made with conviction, with dignity, and with just immense poise.
Everyone who spoke so beautifully about the late great Dr. King, and this day is very important to me as an artist and activist. These days I'm under the school of one of my mentors called Artivism, because it's really so many of us as artists and teaching artists, and it's our activists as well. So I find that it's our duty, under Artivism, which I feel a lot of rappers and rabbis falls into as well, that we have a purpose behind doing what we're doing. And Dr. King is just, again, beyond words. He was a great unifier with his, today he has respect from people from all different political spectrums and different religions. And we really have to honor him. I feel like every day has an essence of Dr. King Day. And as part of, being connected to the Jewish or Israelite community, like I mentioned, it's a purpose, and it's so important that we spread his light and we spread his messages for unity, for change, radical change. And what better way to do that than through emceeing and the different elements of hip hop. So I'm glad we're honoring him together, and everyone should have a tremendous day Monday and a good week.
Yes. So we have another special guest who just popped in, Matt Barr, founder of Rappers and Rabbis, co-founder of the movement, founder of Bible Raps. He's going to give us a special presentation. But before we jump into his presentation, I'm going to play a video from one of our members, Mr. E, who has a spoken word piece called Unity, which is really like a big part of this remembrance. Is there have been these rare times in history where people across all, genders, races, colors, ethnicities, religions have unified for a greater cause in life. And in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what your cause is. It's that at least that you have a cause. Having any sort of cause or dedication or a passion in life is noble. And Mr. E gets into that in the spoken word piece that we're going to play before we go any further.
In honor of the late great Junior, also known as Dr. Martin Luther King, it's only right that I not just pay homage, but continue on the fight for peace, which be everlasting. See, upon my observation of this nation, we came a long way since segregation. So in that case, yes, we have improved. Although racism is still alive, you can see it in the news. You see, a dream without action is simply just a dream. Dr. King envisioned a unified nation like the USA Olympic Dream Team. He foresaw people of all colors holding hands with one another, not as enemies, but connected as sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers. You see, change could take place, but it must start within our community. If we could stay calm and build unity, there's no unity without you and me. We're living in a time of civil rights movement eulogy. So take a stand or take a seat. Like Rosa Parks, a rose could grow in a park that's concrete. With an open mind and with an open heart is the best place where we could meet. Unified, we can't be beat. So keep moving your feet to be elite, spread love and make heat. I wrote this in honor of the late great MLK. I no longer see black and white, I see gray.
Big snaps. Mr. E couldn't be with us in person tonight, but he's definitely with us in spirit as one of our resident MCs whose his main cause is education. And the way he gives back to the community really is through instilling honor to the youth in his teaching. So big snaps, big shout out to Mr. E. That was really an amazing poem. And now I'm going to introduce Matt Barr, who's going to get into some very special teachings tonight. We're talking about understanding. We're talking about unity. And Matt's going to get into some of the theological background behind the philosophy of unity and peace. So without further ado, Matt Barr, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, Crate. I actually took some time to write down more notes than usual because this is a very special weekend. And first, when presenting my little bit about King and his legacy, I will be talking some about Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was a dear friend of Martin Luther King Jr. and a great rabbi. I want to acknowledge two holy brothers of mine who I know and are both Jews of color. One is the executive director of Jews in All Hues, which is a great organization here in Philly. And they have made it a hashtag challenge to not mention Heschel's name during this MLK weekend while teaching about King's legacy. That it's a response to some Jewish communities perhaps making MLK's special day a little too much about Heschel and not King. So I will lose the Don't Say Heschel's Name challenge tonight, but I want to do so respectfully. And I will lose this challenge knowing the other two presenters from Rappers and Rabbis, Eric and Ali, will pass the challenge. Also, I perhaps even indulge in conflating my story with Dr. King's. But I want Rappers and Rabbis to be a place where the warts of authenticity can be on display. And many warts, though not all, many warts are just inverted dimples. So growing up in Iowa City, Iowa, Martin Luther King Jr. was considered a great hero in our house. And later, as a philosophy major in college, I recall a sideways validation while studying MLK's more highfalutin, esoteric jaunts into philosophy. After all, he was a doctor of philosophy. He was so deft with the thoughts and the very thinkers that I read with an obsessiveness that was necessary to crack any intelligibility out of these tomes that were as heavy as stone. Books like Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant, Phenomenology of Spirit by Friedrich Hegel. Most people in my life at that age, at the very least, rolled their eyes when I said I was majoring in philosophy. The father of my college sweetheart asked me if the university handed out fries with that diploma. And the ribbing didn't quite make sense, but the elbow was loud and clear. So I savored in the solace that MLK, a hero of just about everyone, including myself, thought it was worth his time to read and understand these books. And I remember that being a remarkable validation of when I needed it, of pursuing my philosophy degree, reading his deep thoughts about these thinkers that I was trying to crack. As I mentioned, I grew up in Iowa City, so I was never really, I was kind of one of the only Jewish people there, and I took some pride in being Jewish, and I was aware of the Holocaust with a vague sense
of its effect on my family tree. And it wasn't until after college and being a philosophy major that I really started learning about Judaism, and that there's really two houses to Judaism. There's the Beit Knesset, the house of worship, and then there's the house of study, the Beit Midrash. And as a philosopher, I really fell in love with the Beit Midrash. And it was around that time I was introduced to a great thinker of Judaism, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, whose book, God in Search of Man, A Philosophy of Judaism, convinced me to go learn Torah for a year in Jerusalem, which was the start of a long path of consistent Jewish engagement. Shortly before I went to Israel, I met a man in New York, Peter Geffen, who was giving a great talk about the very special relationship between King and Heschel. And also talking about the ridiculous overrepresentation of Jews in the early civil rights movement. About 2/3 of the Freedom Riders were Jewish, of the white Freedom Riders, and about half of the people in the audience and the I Have a Dream speech were Jewish. So even when Martin Luther King looks out and says, it's so great to see that half the people here are white brothers, it's notable that half of those white brothers were Jews, who at that time were about 1% of the population. So we considered why these children of the Holocaust generation were so gung-ho in the civil rights era. We kicked it for a bit afterwards, me and Peter Geffen, and he showed me a letter written to him from Martin Luther King Jr. when he was a Freedom Rider. And it was about as close to Sinai as I've ever been. So yes, Heschel and King were two dynamite philosophers, and no doubt had such deep conversations late into the night about what it's all about when they would hang out, as they were dear friends. They had a number of monumental moments together, including when Heschel marched arm in arm as King led the Birmingham March to DC in 1963. This is when Heschel famously said he felt like he was praying with his feet. Rappers and Rabbis pursues peace. When I think of Martin Luther King Jr., I think the two words that stand out most are peace and love, and the power of each. And after all, you know, rappers and rabbis both say goodbye with peace, like shalom or shalom aleichem or peace. And words are one of the best tools humanity has to avoid violence and other catastrophes. So that is part of the ambition of rappers and rabbis, is to gather together to get gooder at words. And here is Heschel and myself riffing and rapping about the Tower of Babel, which is the story of people who are unified on overtaking God, and then they begin to tower up to confront him. Actually, creates. Can you play the one with the kids?
Okay.
So there's two videos, but I wanna cut this shorter. So one time I had the honor of presenting and teaching at a Martin Luther King, Abraham Joshua Heschel conference. And so we brought together some students to study the relationship. And then we had them write raps about it. And so Crates, if you could play some of that, and you get an idea of what we do, rappers and rabbis, is study these great thinkers, these prophets of our time, and then remix them both in the rap bars that we spit, but also, you notice, we remix some of their actual vocals, which is really cool. So let's run that.
Bridge the gap between black and white, climb the mountain and seize the light. There's power in words and love in our hearts. We may not be there, but it's a start. The nation will rise up because all men are equal. Our brotherhood is stronger than our world's evil people. Word.
The spirit of the prophet is very much alive. The message of the prophet is very much alive. Because I've been to the mountaintop. I've been to the mountaintop. The spirit of the prophet is very much alive. The message of the prophet is very much alive.
If those two were alive at this time, what would they think about what they'd find? Heschel would see Sandy and other hurricanes, and he would tell people not to give God all the blame.
Have faith in the Lord when you have a bad time. Trust in his word and represent the divine. Heschel was a white guy
with the prophet's beard. He marched with Luther King, which some people thought was weird.
Together with the rabbi and other civil rights guys, they used the Bible like the words to the wise. Dr. King preached unity and freedom of speech. Today in the community, his vision was reached.
I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live. The spirit of the prophet is very much alive. Kind of men who combine the very deep love, very powerful dissent, painful rebuke, with unwavering hope.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an extremely motivational force in the civil rights movement. If you want to kind of like study more about him, you don't have to really look much more further than YouTube, where we found this next clip, which is a speech about how to design your life's blueprint. It's a motivational speech from Dr. Luther King. So before we get into the teachings of our co-founder, Ali Richardson, we're going to play this actual speech from Martin Luther King so you could kind of hear more about what we've been talking about, but in his words. I'm going to play that right now.
This is the most important and crucial period of your lives, for what you do now and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it, and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. And finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal stair, but we must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
As we say in the hip-hop world, slow motion is better than no motion. You know what I mean? And Dr. King definitely is an inspirational figure in hip-hop and most popular culture. He had his faults. He was not a perfect man, but he stood for something. And that's more noble than a lot of people can say with their lives. So big shout out to Dr. Martin Luther King for inspiring all of us so many years later after his initial teachings. And to get deeper into it, we got Text Rich Ali Richardson, one of the co-founders of Rappers and Rabbis, who's going to get a little bit deeper into the teachings and the day and times in life of Martin Luther King. Thank you so much, Ali.
Nope.
Ali, you're muted.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I was just saying, so in appreciating Dr. King, one of the things that we really get to dig about him is that he stands at the center of a tradition around deep philosophy, around action, and as a voice of hope, and a giver of that. But I wanted to also highlight that there's a creative side to him. that really taps into and draws on the same kind of an energy that musicians draw upon, such as jazz musicians. And jazz musicians were, in a lot of ways, and represent, I think, also a spirit of democracy and a spirit of community and equality and the principles. So I wanted to do a little reading. I'm going to read a little King, and I'm going to read it to the sounds of John Coltrane. One of the reasons why is that Dr. King not only influenced other thinkers, but he also influenced thinkers that were creators of music. And there's a piece called Alabama by Coltrane, which is the moment where King responded to the bombing of the church that led to the death of the 4 young black girls in a hate crime carried out by the Ku Klux Klan. But just capturing that particular spirit and sound and rhythm. I'm going to read some words from King from the I Have a Dream speech, but I'm going to read it to this Coltrane selection. So just give me a few moments here. I'm going to put this on and just hopefully do some honor to Dr. King's words. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was the promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life and the pursuit of happiness. It's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note. Insofar as her citizens of color are concerned, instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, which has come back marked insufficient funds. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches and freedom and the security of justice. We've also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off, to take tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make the real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. Now is the time. Now is the time.
Amen.
So yeah, I wanted to just read something rather than talk, about him. I feel like the sound of him, the spirit of his words, is captured. And Coltrane captures it, and is inspired by it. And yeah, I mean, Dr. King is certainly also a huge influence on hip hop music that speaks up on social justice. And I mean, in that spirit, Dr. King's like an MC. among many MCs, a philosopher, a teacher, and even in the rhythm of his words, he had his finger on the pulse of humanity. So, it's an honor to be here with my brothers, some rappers and rabbis, and to celebrate and appreciate Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. That was definitely an honor right there for us to be able to hear your version of Dr. King's oration. He was one of the greatest orators of all time. There's definitely been like a long lineage of great speakers who were influenced by Dr. King. And when I say speakers, I don't just mean motivational speakers, I mean artists, musicians, activists, so many people of so many different kinds of passions and talents were inspired by King. One of his main teachings was that of um, abstaining from physical conflict and using your words to spread peace and to bring harmony to the world. And as Jews, we have always been big advocates of peace in the world. Also in hip hop, the hip hop community has always been big on peace and unity related to violence. You hear so many hip hoppers say peace. You know what I mean? Like it's something that I don't know if directly came from King's teachings, but I think that generation, like Matt was talking about the children of the Holocaust generation, but like really the children of the civil rights generation became the founders of the hip hop movement. And it is a global movement that's based on peaceful practice. Uh, we battle with our words. We battle on the dance floor. You know what I mean? But hip hop overall is a very peaceful and not just a peaceful organization, but there's so many people. There's like a giant consortium within the hip hop community that deals with conflict resolution, with bringing peace in the streets, especially when it comes to gang violence and people in neighborhoods that are kind of fighting against each other for no reason. There's been members of the hip hop community that time and time again have stood up and tried to spread peace in these communities. And it's really been a special thing over my lifetime to watch, to see people who are in such a competitive space. The music business, the entertainment business is so competitive and cutthroat, but at the same time, hip hop has really brought people together in such a beautiful global community. And the tradition of peace in hip hop and the traditions of peace in Judaism are so special. And one way that we celebrate that as rappers and rabbis is our remixed version of Ose Shalom. Tonight we have one of the MCs featured on that track in the building, Internal Rhyme. I want to give a special shout out this week to the Jewish community around Dallas, Texas, that's dealing with a horrible incident today. Like I said last week, and like I say every week, it's like we continue to have these horrible things happen in the world that make us want to dedicate this prayer to them. And today is no different, as there's a horrible situation going on in Texas right now. But I want to pass the rock over to Internal Rhyme. You posted something on your Instagram earlier today that was so powerful, and so I want you to introduce this, remixed prayer that we're about to play, but also kind of maybe talk about what peace means to you and your cause to bring light to the anti-Semitism that we see in the world today.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me introduce the song. Definitely, Oseh Shalom as a prayer is one that is near and dear to my heart, and certainly our rappers and rabbis rendition of it is, unique, special, and a true gem. But yeah, I'm glad Crates introduced this by acknowledging what is going on in I believe it's pronounced Colleyville, Texas, at Beth Israel Synagogue. There's been a hostage situation all day. In light of Dr. King weekend, it's just astonishing to, see any community fall victim to a hate crime. I think it's important, for us as Jewish leaders to acknowledge it, and also, to wear our Judaism on our sleeves, and or not just our Judaism, but our identities, however they may be. So without further ado, I guess we will get into Ose Shalom. I am praying for peace in Texas, in the States, and in the world in a new year, at least in the Gregorian calendar that we're entering.
Amen. And then we are rappers and rabbis. So after I play this prayer, we are going to get into a cipher. So I hope all y'all got a couple bars ready. I'm going to load up a beat in a little bit, and we're going to get the cipher in to close this out on a positive note. But for now, let's do our best to spread peace and spread love in the world with Ose Shalom.
Shalom Bimroma, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Bimroma, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say Shalom, y'all say Shalom. Y'all say shalom, 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 y'all say shalom.
Y'all say shalom, I play Capone, actually I'm Maya. Who passing me the lighter? We bout to take you higher. You waiting on Messiah, they hit you with the hezzy. Get on your Hezekiah, till heaven is your climbing. The devil wants attention, I dead him off with silence. Though violence is cathartic, remember your assignment. Recorded on papyrus, they cannot ignore it, not even in the slightest. Talking about a blockchain, these tokens came from Titus. Before there was a pilot, we was flying on Osiris. Try us.
Sharp swords to prune force, then prune force to tune chords. A higher type of harmony when we know we ain't harming we. Sharp swords to prune force, then prune force to tune chords. A higher type of harmony when we know we ain't harming we. Say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say shalom, 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 y'all say shalom.
One day we'll peace out, go fishing with Trump and Hillary Clinton. Eye to eye, fist to fist, no fist cuffs, only fist bumps. We need to talk it out. Alphabet text, introduce yourself. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, hi, H, I.
One day we could just listen to what the artist has written. Smidgets are hardest renditions of where the pain lies. One day we'll embrace differences, cause that type of division feels like it ended, but really it's just a gray sky. And it hardly ever rains on the west side, but I'm rocking with the gang out of Best Eye. Trying to unify, strive to the next high. Gotta get by with a head high and set the example. I know the fight that's a hand is a handful. Let's settle down, get around. With my brother MC and we don't mean no Rambo. Hip hop is a sample of the feeling of peace it projects from the core. Let us dismantle the systems that keep us attached to the floor. Ain't back in the war. I throw two fingers up to the Shemesh. Stick to my moral ground, that's how I stay sound without no regrets. I got the best love and I'm spreading it far as it gets. And I tell you to bless up, cause reality hard as a desk. So when I'm starting to fret, gotta let anxiety get away. Cause I know larger the stress, the larger the bet, there's gotta be better days. Oh say
Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Le'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say shalom, 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 y'all say shalom.
All right, that is Ose Shalom remix from the Rappers and Rabbis album, Rappers and Rabbis Volume 1, online now on all streaming platforms. Deluxe edition coming soon with a couple new songs. But for now, go to Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever you stream music, Tidal, Napster. If you're in Canada, go on to Deezer. We're on all platforms. Check us out, Rappers and Rabbis Volume 1 online now. Dr. King, man, we're talking about Dr. King this week. To paraphrase him, he had a saying that was something like faith, if you have it and it's strong enough to move mountains. And I really believe that if you like stand on what you believe and put it out there into the world, that you definitely can make a change. You can make a difference in society. And I think that kind of is relatable to this week's Torah portion. And I'm going to play an instrumental version of Mi Kamocha for everyone to rap on. But before we get into the Cypher, Rabbi, if you want to maybe just quickly jump into this week's Torah portion and maybe talk about how the Jewish faith is similar to that faith and belief that Dr. King had.
Wow. So yeah, this week is a fantastic part of the story. We're in Exodus in the book of Shemot, and this morning we read the stories of the Israelites leaving Egypt, going through the splitting of the sea, coming out into the desert and the Sinai Peninsula on the other side, and we're looking ahead to the week of the 3-month journey to stand before Mount Sinai and receive the 10 Commandments and the Torah. And I love this period of the story so much because this really raises the question of what is freedom and what do you do with freedom? Where on the one hand, like we went through the sea split, we're free. We're in the desert, we're out of Egypt. And the question of, well, what do you do with it? Leads us straight to Mount Sinai. It's the direction of purpose, like some of we were talking about, and the instruction that we receive on Mount Sinai of make make the world better, right? Bring more light into this world, bring peace into this world, right? Justice as right, tzedek as the core of like the foundation of what the Torah is on, and Moses, who was a man of justice, and tzedakah of charity, of giving. It's the same word, tzedek and tzedakah. And in fact, perhaps we could say that tzedakah is the way towards tzedek, that giving and being generous of heart and of time and of possessions, and looking around to see who needs what you have to give is exactly what's needed to bring more and more justice into the world. So that'll be a blessing for us. And let's hear the beat and see what we can put on, what holy words we can spit to the beat.
Yeah, I love the parallels between Moses and MLK. And I kind of like, even in that story, Miriam is like our version of Rosa Parks. You know, it's like she was just as important in that Bible narrative as Rosa was to the civil rights movement. So in talking about Dr. King this week, I want people to understand that the civil rights movement had so many other great leaders and so many members in that community, including Heschel that we talked about, including Rosa Parks, and so many more. So hopefully over the course of some of the next couple live casts, we keep the discussion going about the civil rights era and how the children of that era really begat the hip hop era. And we are all kind of cut from that cloth of social justice. And I really don't think any of us would be here doing a fellowship of rappers and rabbis if it wasn't for our beliefs in peace and love and social justice. So with all that said, let's get into the Cypher. Let's bust some bars. Amen.
I can start it. Yeah. Mi Hamocha. Like freedom, what is dope by? When all of us are free, cause what's freedom in you without it in me? We need true unity. The MLK Day, that's what it means. Splitting from this team, feel it from the generations in my genes. And you know just what it means.
teaming up with R&R, that's my team. With MLK, he had a dream. And it wasn't about no green, it was about the unity that we could see in between.
Yeah. Hey, I said, let me tell you about a man that made me proud. My grandfather was rabbi in the deep south, and he heard about Martin Luther, so he said, I gotta take a flight and see what's true, sir. And he went and he picked a burning stand. He marched with him next to him at Birmingham. And then he got arrested. Martin Luther said, let me ask you a question. We both need to have a talk. Rabbi, why did you walk? My grandfather said, we might disagree, but that don't mean that this right here is a mystery. You see, us Jews, we have been persecuted. So this right here is what I pursued, because we follow all the peace and justice is the Jewish way that we should be. So take a hand, be a giver nation. Bishalach, the story of liberation.
Woo! Woo! Hey.
Yo, I guess I'm going to have to kick a jammer. I faced injustice in Alabama, and then they tried to throw me in the slammer, but I knocked them up like MC Hammer. I came back with more justice and more peace. They called me the peace and justice beast. Every time that I release, I gotta go and try to teach each. But yo, man, it's not a sample. It's an example. An example. So grab the mic and yo, you get a handle of the King's speech. Mi amoha.
Was a sample. Give them a handful. Yo, coming through with the team, fighting the clan, mentally expand. From here to the Holy Land, the vision we went. Hold on, 1 second. I'm in the middle of a cypher, but the door open. I'm scoping, looking in the hope, and the Dr. Ken and eloping to the movement of the faith to remove the disgrace. Get away from the waste, the wicked things that we displace with the light, with the ore, with the chokhmah at the door. Let the lion roar like it's Yom Kippur atonement. Now I'm moving, feeling in the zone and to the beat. Yo, can't wait till the retreat where we plan to do and defeat the evil like a Malik. Yo, we get baked off the levitation like the matzah from the Exodus. Thank you, Hashem, in God we trust. You're K Bub K. Shout out to the world. The name is Yosef, alias Big J.
Teach one. Put it in your speed gun.
Yeah. I want to jump in. Ooh. Cypher's so good, wanna jump in, but I can't, so I pass it to a Dom for the Hebrew chant.
Hebrew chant. Micha mocha. אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני, ויאמרו לאמור, השירה לאדוני כי גאו גאה. סוס ורוכלו רמה וים, עוזי וזימתיה ויהי לישועה. זה אלי וענווהו אלוהי אוויר הרוממנו, אדוני איש מלחמה, אדוני שמו, מרכבות פרעה וחילו ירה בים, ומבחר שלישיו שובו בים סוף. תהומות יכסימו ירדו במצלות כמו אבן, מיכה מוחה.
Teach one, put it in your speech, son. We can all reach one. Each one, teach one, put it in your speech, son. We can all reach one.
We could all reach one, every victim that we see freedom to this very season. I know that this one that you didn't cease on every time that we go and we never begun. Cause that right there is the song of the sea. And I know that Martin Luther's longing to dream and everybody else can get victory. So if we gonna split the sea, that is with my team. Cause right here we be acting and stab. If you think that I know I get it, so it's rappers and rabbis. Ooh!
Teach one, put it in your speech, son. We can all reach one. Reach one.
Yo, shout out, man, to the team, Rappers and
Mm.
Rabbis. That was an amazing cipher. We paying homage, each one teach one. That's kind of what it's all about, bringing the worlds of Judaism and hip hop together. That's going to do it for us tonight. I think this was really a great way to pay homage to the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I hope everybody, like Big J says, I hope everybody has a blessed week coming up and has an amazing day of service on Monday. Find a way to give back to your community, even if it's just one random act of kindness. That's my challenge to y'all this week. Just find one way to give back to your community in any way possible. I think we already had a great start with tonight, but let's definitely keep the conversation going of social justice and peace and love. Thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight and everyone's contributions, especially to special guests Matt Barr and Ali Richardson, to Mr. E, who provided us with that really amazing spoken word piece. This was such a blessed evening for y'all, and that was such a dope cipher. We're going to have many, many more to come in the future, but for now, I'm Digital Crates, representing for Rappers and Rabbis, powered by Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West New Jersey. Without them, this would not be possible to provide y'all this amazing live cast and live stream tonight. Thank y'all so much. Peace. Shalom.